You have arrived at Conscious Dream Academy. My name is Celia. Welcome. I have had several people tell me, you should have a podcast. And I go, oh, really? And I think to myself, I already have a podcast. I just haven't been making any episodes. So I got so many people telling me that, took it as a sign to get moving on creation and sharing my stories. I was in a car accident a few years ago, and because of the health issues over the last few years, I was spending a lot of time alone, going within, basically doing a meditation because of all the pain. And well, it turns out when you turn off the noise of this physical external world and you go within and you begin to clear out the shadow aspects of the ego, you open up the doorway to communication with your higher self and any other beings that feel welcome to come in. I did learn how to protect myself and ask for protection from these higher beings, so I feel very safe. I'm not living in fear of some dark forces coming in. Really, I think the dark forces were coming in before I learned to raise my vibration and have boundaries and before I learned all the things. So I've never felt more protected, and my world pretty much on a weekly basis is just getting cracked wide open, learning more and more about this spiritual experience of being me and yet having this human experience as me. This podcast came to be because one of my gifts through my Dark Night of the Soul experience that was discovered is my gift of dreaming. Dream world, just like any gift, I believe it is accessible by anyone who gives it the time and attention. Therefore, other people can expand this gift. So there is something to be learned, certainly. But also, I just want to share to help others understand what is possible by using Dream World guidance. How it's seriously just so epic. I go through my waking life and I experience, I'm gonna load the dishwasher. Okay, now I'll take my dogs to the backyard and I'll watch them go to the bathroom. Now I'll go inside and I'll do the next task. And it's like, let's repeat these tasks all day long. Definitely, there is some entertainment. There are many moments of joy, but it's a lot of time doing mundane tasks, which I now do in a state of being in the now. So I have this awareness of noticing what information am I receiving from these higher dimensions. What is my body telling me? What is my intuition telling me? I used to be an insane multitasker. From the outside, I must have looked like a nut job, like how many things I was multitasking. Now, just for brain health purposes and just the understanding of it's not really possible to be in the now, which is the juicy place to be if you're multitasking more than necessary. So I'm really big in doing one task at a time. I'm like a completely changed person. So anyhow, with Dream World, I think, okay, where do I even start? I keep a dream journal. The stories I've collected in the last few years are epic. Where do I start? And it's kind of like, I guess, it should just start right where I am. In the daytime, I close my eyes and I have a vision of myself booking it across the desert under the night sky. I see the moon, booking it with a pack of wolves. I am running with the wolves. There's a wolf to my right. There's a wolf to the back left of me. There's a wolf just ahead. I can see its butthole. Like that's how detailed this visual is. Booking it with the wolves. So liberating. So epic. I wake up. Oh, I open my eyes. I'm like, damn. And I'd say for like a year, at least I have had dreams or visions of wolves where I'm scared, where they're up on a hilltop and it's like they're looking at me and I'm like, oh my gosh, are my dogs safe? I got to get out of here. And so it's something that, fairly regularly would come through. And my dream interpreter friend, Christina, she is such a gift. If I tell her my dream, she is meant to be in my life and she is meant to tell me the meaning, because every single time I'm like, that's the key that puts it all together. It's just, for some reason, sometimes I don't see these seemingly obvious things. And when I previously told her about the wolf sightings, she said, oh no, I think that they're summoning the wild woman archetype from you. And I'm like, what is that? I don't even know what that means. It turns out they were actually inviting me up on the hilltop. They were visiting because they were inviting me a aspect of my psyche to wake up, to step into my power. So after I have this vision of running with the wolves, of course, I text Christina because I just was not expecting that visual at all. And I was like, this is so the opposite of my previous dreams about wolves where I'm scared. I sent her the message and she says, oh my gosh, you're not going to believe it. She had gone on a trip and got me a present, but was waiting to see me to give me the present. But she said, I got to show you now. So she sends a picture of the gift. It is a wolf pendant for a necklace. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I get onto Instagram and I see an ad for a book club, for a book called Women Who Run with the Wolves. And I'm living a life in the flow of synchronicity. So I'm constantly surprised, but not surprised. I would say I'm constantly amazed, but not surprised. And I sent her a picture of this. I was like, did you know there's a book called Women Who Run with the Wolves, and somehow Instagram is telling me there's a book club I can join that starts in 1 week? And she said, oh, I have that book. You can borrow it. So later that day, she brings me the book and the necklace. And I start the book. I'm in the book club and I'm going with the flow. Because of this book is when I start to learn about how stories and fairy tales and myths that have been passed down, and how these stories are actually, and it's, to me, I'm like, how am I 37 years old and I just learning basic things like this? It happens all the time. Or it's just, becoming more and more aware is all it is. Pick any story. The main character is the main character. Every other character is representative of a piece of the main character's psyche. So, for example, you have a main character and then there's a villain, there's a predator, and, it's an evil stepmother, whatever it is. Well, that evil character is actually representative of a piece of the main character's psyche. So within the main character's psyche, there is a piece that it is a predator to the main character. So that predator is sabotaging the main character's efforts at becoming conscious, at becoming whatever they're trying to become, pretty much becoming conscious. So if you think about it, like this morning is a perfect example. I had told myself last night, today I'm going to record a podcast. I said, I'm going to record it at 10:10 a.m. It's like 9:50 and I'm laying in bed and I'm like, I don't feel like doing anything of the sort. But then I think to myself, because I now have this information, okay, there's a piece of my psyche that is trying to sabotage my consciousness, my evolution, my forward motion toward whatever the goal is to get done. And I'm like, with that awareness, I can take a moment of pause and be like, oh hell no. That predator in my psyche is not going to run the show. So, alas, here I am recording. The really epic thing about my experience with dreaming, and I'm not the only person because I read about this in books, is I have a dream, and specifically with this book, I'll have a dream, and then the next day, the chapter in the book that I read, the specific fairy tale or story that they talk about in the book will be what my dream was about the night before. It's a prophetic dream of what's to come. So it really helps me look at it in a way that relates to myself. So I'm able to read the book, read the fairy tale, get the message from the book, but also know that the night before I had a dream where they take that same storyline and relate it to specifically to me, characters in my life, and how I am feeling about it all and how I'm responding to it all. So it's giving me that life lesson with a lot to work with. Incredible. It's happened over and over. Honestly, I can't get over. Okay, so I do this thing where I doubt Dream World and I say, "Oh, I mean, this was 2 nights ago. I just doubted it." I'm like, "That what does that dream even mean? This dream, I can't make any sense of this dream." And then yesterday I sit down to read the chapter, and it's the story of Manawee, Manawee, from Women Who Run with the Wolves by Clarissa Pinkola Estes. The dream is literally this story, Manawee. And I'm like, oh my gosh, First of all, never underestimate the dream. And if you do, that's fine, but you're wrong. Every dream has a purpose. And sometimes if you just wait a day or two, sometimes I've had this many times. I get an intuitive hit to look at my dream journal from exactly 1 year ago. And the dream from exactly 1 year ago will be a message that relates to today, that makes sense for today. And it didn't make sense at the time, but it makes sense at exactly a year later and puts pieces together. The more you can tune into your intuition and be open to letting these pieces come together, the more your consciousness can expand and really just your mind will be blown. I work with intention with dreaming, and there's a reading from this book. Asking the proper question is the central action of transformation. In fairy tales, in analysis, and in individuation. The key question causes germination of consciousness. The properly shaped question always emanates from an essential curiosity about what stands behind. Questions are the keys that cause the secret doors of the psyche to swing open. And another epic thing about this book, Women Who Run with the Wolves, is the author Clarissa weaves in, when we dream, it's often whatever story's playing out, it's just the same as the fairy tale. So in your dream, the different characters are aspects of your psyche. I have been working with dreams more seriously for a couple years now, and I didn't know this. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is a game changer for my analysis of dreams, because after the accident, couldn't read. I couldn't listen to a podcast. I couldn't take in any external stimuli because my brain was overloaded. And so all of my experience, my wisdom, my knowledge, my understanding of the dream world came to be through my experience in the dream world. And so guides would come to me while dreaming and teach me how to use Dream World. But now that I'm able to take in more external stimuli, the dream will, the dream is the one who told me to start learning about Carl Jung. The dream is the one who will tell me, it will tell me, hey, here's a person, go learn about this. Like this week, I had a dream about certain beings, non-human beings, and I thought, okay, so I guess something's going to happen with these beings. And sure enough, I channeled in these beings. So the dream world very much tries to get you, there's so many functions of the dream world, first of all, but one is, I believe it helps to get you comfortable with something. Because if you're presented with something in your waking life, you could get freaked out. But in the dream world, you can be caught, or in a meditative space, you could be caught in a really relaxed state where you could experience something and remain calm and surrender to it and not feel attacked. And so in the dream space, you can have information presented so that later, if you then are channeling something, you're not as freaked out because you're like, well, I've actually already been having this communication. It's just been in the dream space. It's kind of like tiptoeing you into the deep end instead of dropping you in the deep end. Dream world is such a fascinating experience for me, and I love talking about it and I love sharing. It is such a wild experience where the dream world is tied into the waking life and the synchronicities between the two. It's just so amazing. But to try to explain that to others sometimes can sound a little ADHD because it's literally, it's like 24 hours type thing. It's not like this simple one-liner story. It's like weaving all the things together and then the pieces click. Pieces do not click right away sometimes. Sometimes other pieces have to come in before it clicks. So, a little bit more about, since I brought up the predator aspect of the psyche, I think this is a really big deal. So, I'm going to read a little bit to you about that. This is the more profound initiation, a woman's initiation into her proper instinctive senses, wherein the predator is identified and banished. This is the moment in which the captured woman moves from victim status into shrewd-minded, wily-eyed, sharp-eared status instead. This is the time that almost superhuman effort manages to drive the so tired psyche to its final work. The key questions continue to help. For the key continues to bleed its wise blood even as the predator forbids consciousness. His maniacal message is, for consciousness, you die. Her response is to trick him into thinking she is his willing victim, while she plans his demise. Among animals, there is said to be a mysterious psychic dance between predator and prey. It is said if the prey gives a certain kind of servile eye contact and a certain kind of shiver that causes a faint rippling of the skin over its muscles, that the prey acknowledges its weakness to the predator and agrees to become the predator's victim. There are times to shiver and run, and there are times to not. At this critical time, a woman must not shiver and must not grovel. Okay, it goes on. But it's basically just like this morning. I identified the predator component of the psyche. I stood strong and I took over. I won. I took down that part of the psyche. And I think the more you do that, the less it will exist because it will die. Another excerpt from this book. Dreams are portales, entrances, preparations, and practices for the next step in consciousness, the quote-unquote next day in the individuation process. So this is what I was talking about, where the dream will literally prepares your consciousness for the work for the next day. I mean, how epic is that? I'm like, is this real? This can't be real. It's way too epic. It is real though. We could say, so a woman might have a dream of the predator when her psychic circumstances are too complacent. We could say that this occurs in order to raise a storm in the psyche so that some energetic work can be done. But also, a dream like this affirms that the woman's life needs to change, that the woman dreamer has gotten caught in some hiatus as regards a difficult choice, that she is reluctant to take the next step, go the next distance, that she is shying away from wresting her own power from the predator, that she is not used to being, acting, striving at full bore in all out capacity. These dreams are wake up calls. Okay, basically, go read the book. It's a huge book, not for everyone. Read it if you're called, though. Take the call. Just to be in the now and talk about dreams in the now, I'm way into my mission of shining light into people's lives that are curious to have more light, that are curious to let their life be joyful and to be in their purpose and to know their purpose and to live authentically. And just in my mind, I picture it as like someone just like getting their sparkle. Like I just literally picture like this magical sparkles around them. So I want to share my successes and my happiness that I've achieved through all the things I've done on my healing journey, but specifically dreaming has been a huge help by actually listening to because I could ignore my dreams, and I have plenty of times. But when I listen, it's astounding. So I would like to help, inspire people to know that they too can listen, even if they're just having the tiniest little dream or they just remember a piece. Once you start to pay attention, the dream world will reward you. And it's not the dream world. It's just dream world is the portal through which the guidance comes through. So I'll give an example of using intention. I set an intention because someone who's helping me with my website says, well, the first thing, plenty of people say this, the first thing to do is post on social media and add value and gain a following. And I'm like, okay, that sounds terrible. That sounds inauthentic. It doesn't sound terrible, but it doesn't feel great. And then there's this whole list of steps you're supposed to take. So it's bedtime a few nights ago, and so I make my dream intention. I say, so what advice can you give me for building a high vibe tribe on Conscious Dream Academy through Instagram? And so that high vibe tribe, right? Like a following basically. And I had a freaking nightmare. I never have nightmares. And I was at a place, a dude had me trapped, and I had a long dream of trying to get out of this place. I didn't have a phone, I didn't have keys, I didn't have transportation, I didn't have a ride. No one else seemed to be able to help me. I was trapped. So I was trying to escape this place for the entire dream, and it was so miserable. And then when I woke up, I was really unhappy about it because I'm like, I don't want to experience that ever. So I talked to my dream interpreter friend, Christina, and she says, sounds like that's not the path for you. And I'm like, clearly. Then I tell this whole story, and I had a couple people yesterday say, you should start a podcast. And then I think, I have the podcast. Okay. Last night for my dream intention, I say, can I have advice for me being a podcaster? So I've been getting guidance to make podcasts and to just tell my stories through podcasting. And I have not been getting guidance from my spiritual team to add value on Instagram, like daily Instagram content. That guidance hasn't come through. So when I asked the dream world about guidance for Instagram, it's a straight up nightmare. Like, no, this is not authentic to you. No. when I asked for guidance on podcasting, which my spirit team has been guiding me to podcasting for sure, I get the most epic dream that was so beautiful and serene, and it was so perfect. It had like the famous podcasters there for this like secret event where they're all arriving. Everyone's wearing these like beautiful dresses. I'm obsessed with dresses apparently because I'm constantly dreaming about wearing beautiful dresses. It's at this lovely resort, and it's a lady offers me a job. There's just so many little pieces, like a dream about being an up and coming podcaster. So it was just like a wonderful dream. And it was about the thing that I was asking about. So it's like, be yourself, share your story. This is a natural path for you. So I am so grateful that I killed part of my psyche this morning so that I could continue to expand my consciousness and share my story. Love to you all. Thank you for listening. More magic to come soon.